Welcome to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, episode 404. Today's episode is about mentors. How mentors changed my life, how mentors changed your life. We often see someone who is where they are now, and we don't realize how many possible changes they could have gone through in the past to get to where they are now. Take me, for example. I have done 404 episodes of this podcast, which means that you now see me as comfortable behind the microphone, and I am. But it hasn't always been like that. As a matter of fact, just 7 years ago, in 2017, I was a very closed, shy and reserved person. I was apprehensive at social situations, afraid of speaking to new people, uncomfortable at networking events. I was someone who was afraid to speak my opinion. So, how do you go from that to being a speaker and podcaster? That's one of the things I want to talk to you about today. And there is a second thing, and that is a huge opportunity which is time sensitive. So keep listening. In today's episode, I am going to share some parts of my personal story and the role that my mentors have played in these major transitions in my life's journey. And let's start back 8 years ago. I was at the very beginning of my personal development journey at that time. I had just turned 40 and I knew that I wanted to do something different with my life rather than continue to be a dentist as I had been for the previous 15 years. It was around that time that I was given an audio program called Tony Robbins, Personal Power. And this man's voice captivated me. I started going through the lessons one by one, taking notes like crazy. I resonated with what he was saying and how he was saying it. So when I found that he was doing a 4-day event in London, just a couple of hours away from where I lived, I said, let's do it. I didn't know what to expect, but I felt drawn to experience it. The event was called Unleash the Power Within. And at the end of the first day of the event, there was the so-called firewalk, which basically was walking barefoot along 10 feet of hot coals. And this is something that 99.9% of the participants did on that time, and I did myself. And there is so much to be said about that event and how empowering it was. But that was nothing compared to what happened on the third day of the event. That's when I had what we call a light bulb moment, a major epiphany that happened with a very intense emotional release at that time as well. So, as I mentioned earlier, I had been a very closed person until then. And I always thought that this was who I was. That was my personality. And that's why I'm finding it difficult to connect with new people. What I realized on that day of the event was that this was not who I was. It was only a set of limiting beliefs or a voice, if you want, at the back of my head telling me, Aggie, people are not interested in what you have to say. When I realized that this was the reason that I was not comfortable speaking with new people, I changed very much in my life as a result. My life has never been the same since. So fast forward 2 years later, I had changed quite a lot. I had given public speeches and started my first podcast, Personal Development Essentials. So I decided to go back and relive the event in a different capacity as a crew member, volunteering and giving back to the Tony Robbins community and helping thousands of people to have a transformational, empowering experience like the one that I had. And some things I still remember from that event was how crewing was about serving and leading at the same time. It was about teamwork, embracing uncertainty, being flexible and resourceful. You get so much from giving. And another thing I remember from the event, and I have experienced it a few times in situations like this, is that amazing synchronistic events happen when we are in a higher emotional or higher vibrational state. There are some incredible serendipities. But anyway, I digress. I will come back to this year, 2019, because that was the year that I was introduced to Dean Graziosi, who then became my mentor. So I'm going to return here, and you will see why it is so important in a moment. But just to close on talking about my journey with Tony Robbins, then when the lockdowns happened and we couldn't do live events, I went to a couple of virtual events, and then last year I returned to crew in person. And this time I volunteered on the fire team, responsible for building the fire and creating the firewalk experience, the walking across the hot coals, for 10,000 participants. That experience for me was so memorable, and there are so many things to be said about that I had recorded a full episode talking about that. So if you're interested, I will put a link in the episode description and you can listen to that in more detail. So, as I was saying earlier, let's now go back to 2019, which was a big transition year for me, a big shift in my trajectory. And the second mentor who I'll mention today and I'm grateful for, and who has made a big difference in my life the last few years, was Dean Graziosi. To be honest, I didn't know who he was until 2019. When I found out that he and Tony Robbins were hosting a free online event describing a system, a blueprint designed to turn knowledge and self-education into impact and profit. I still remember Tony and Dean talking about their vision to make self-education the new norm, which was something very inspiring to me when I heard them talk about that. And so I went into the program. It was called Knowledge Business Blueprint at that time. And what it did for me was make me realize that my ongoing passion for personal development, for podcasting, did not have to remain a hobby. I could turn it into a business. And it gave me, from the mindset shifts I needed, to templates and structures on how to organize, for example, a mastermind or an event. Dean Graziosi co-hosted the program with Tony Robbins, and I often found myself tearing up at something that Dean was saying in the videos. He was speaking to my heart. And what he did for me as my mentor on the program and beyond the program, he gave me the confidence that even though I had been a dentist for 20 years, I could pivot and create a business doing something that I was really passionate about and completely a different direction. He also took me out of my comfort zone over and over again. I remember one assignment we had was to do a Facebook Live using a specific framework called the Hook Story Close. And that Facebook Live that I did at that time took me way out of my comfort zone. And the result of it, interestingly enough, is that it won an award. So some other stuff I did. In-person masterminds. I organized and hosted events, one of which was in a luxury hotel in central London, out of my comfort zone. Great growth. I built an email list. I launched an online course. In general, I had the know-how and the community to help and support me. And it all started with an online event, similar to the one that Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi are running this week on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of June. I will be there personally inviting you to this free 3-day event. I really believe it can be a catalyst for personal growth and transformation if you're there. I told you earlier about Tony Robbins events. The impact of these events goes far beyond the immediate moment. It has the power to create lasting change in a person's life, changing their thinking, behavior, actions, and results. And the ripple effect of these changes can be felt in families, communities, and even society at large. If I hadn't participated in that online event in 2019, I probably wouldn't be here now, sharing all this with you. But because I did, here I am. As we conclude today's episode, remember, transformation is a journey, not a destination. Your past does not define your future. By stepping out of your comfort zone, embracing new opportunities, and seeking guidance from mentors, you can create a life that truly aligns with your purpose and your passion. So, I challenge you to take action today. Join the free 3-day event hosted by Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi on June 13th to 15th. This event could be the catalyst for your personal growth and transformation, just as it was for me. For more details and to sign up for the event, follow the link in the episode description. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you at the event.